Welcome to the Craft to Career podcast with Elizabeth Chappell, where every week we dive into how you can turn your craft into a successful career. Get ready to have the career you've always dreamed of.
Welcome to the Craft to Career podcast. I am Elizabeth Chappell, the host of the show. This week I'm doing a follow-up. If you have listened to the podcast for a while, you know that I have done some business coaching calls right here on the podcast. And one of the very first business coaching calls I did, it's episode 13. It's a coaching call with Erin Grogan of Love So Modern. And I actually had a listener reach out recently and said, hey, I would love to hear how some of these business podcasting coaching calls have played out. And so I reached out to Erin. I actually that same day saw her post about a release that she had of a pattern and how well it had gone. I was like, oh, well, let's have you come on the podcast. So I'm really excited to have her here. And it was such a fun podcast to record that I will definitely be reaching out to others who have had a business coaching call just to follow up and see how they're doing. So let's jump in and hear how things have been going with Erin. Erin, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have you. We had you, I should look at the date. It was a while ago.
It feels like a very long time ago.
Right, I know. I mean, I haven't been doing it, I don't even think a year yet. I'll have to, anyhow, point is, we had you on the podcast a while ago, under a year, we'll say. And for those who want to go and listen to that original episode, it's episode 13. Okay, it came out July 2nd, 2021. So there we are. It was under a year ago. And in that episode, we did a business coaching call. And first, before we even go on, I would love for you to just share a recap of how business is going in general. What have you been up to since we chatted last? And how are things going?
Well, so to prepare for today, I re-listened to that episode. And I don't think there's a single thing that was said in that episode that is still true today.
Okay.
So much has changed. I'm not even sure where I could even begin. Literally everything is different. So I took your advice and made a lot of changes to my website. Was the first thing. As soon as we hung up, I went and changed. And I actually ended up switching. So I'm no longer... I still have an Etsy for just those people who accidentally find you there. But I have my own site that I sell on now. I switched over from WordPress and I'm now on Squarespace so that I can sell my own products. And it's just an easier system to use. I'm now so focused on patterns. I'm no longer taking on sewing projects for others. So that's a huge difference. My patterns are now the biggest part of my revenue, where before it was not. It's just such a huge difference. Love So Modern is doing really well. I just released my 10th pattern. So when we talked in July, I had 3 patterns out. So I just released my 10th pattern. And I surpassed my personal sales goal for the pattern, which was really exciting.
Way to go. That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, I'll be honest, 2 things happened. Why I'm having you back on the podcast. One, I had a listener reach out and say, hey, I'm listening to your podcast and I'm listening to the business coaching calls and I would love to hear how people are doing. I was like, oh, right. Yeah, let's do that. Because I had mentioned doing that. So I was like, okay, I need to do that. And then that same day, you and I are in a Facebook group and it's for quilt pattern designers. And you posted about your latest release, that it was your biggest success ever. And I also had just been noticing up to the launch of your pattern, how well you were doing with your launch. And so all of that together, because before this, I just went and re-listened to the podcast as well to jog my memory. What did we talk about? What were the goals? And then I went and looked at your website. So I'm just going to go through the things that we'd kind of talked about and how I've seen you do a really good job of improvement. And then I'd love to hear, I'll ask more questions. So we'll start with that. One of the first things that I noticed when I went to your website, one was which I'm so excited. I'm like, where do I start? Where do I start? So you have nailed this above the fold when you look at it. And I'm looking at it right now. Today is, let me see what it is, January, March, May 24th, 2022. So you just released a brand new pattern. And when you go to your website, lovesomodern.com, right? .com.
Yep.
It shows you holding your new quilt, and that's what it is. Like, people go there and it's saying, buy my new quilt, plus it comes with a free video tutorial. That's it. That's like what you're doing. And then as you scroll down, it's all about your patterns, and they're just listed so easily. Like, instantly who you are, what you're about. It's very easy to find. The pictures are great. I'm just so pleased going back and listening to the podcast. I'm like, oh, she did such a good job. So yay for that. And then also there was a pop-up that came up where last time, let's see, it said something like, join my newsletter. And now it says, get my free pattern. So tell me about your opt-in and how that's working for you.
Yeah, so that's actually doing really well. So when we first left, you're like, just gotta come up with something, even if it's a discount code. So I started there. And then there was this block hop. So you could design a block, and there was a theme. Then, you jump from person's blog to blog and you get the pattern. But I can't just stop at a block. So I made a whole quilt. And so then I ended up making it a free pattern for joining my newsletter. And during this time, I was also working on my Merry and Joy quilt pattern, which is a Christmas themed pattern, and it uses curves. And the free pattern also uses curves. And I was like, what a wonderful way to pair these together. And because some people have a lot of nerves about curves. Solve the problem on both ends. And I made like a mini training series on curves. So now it's like I have something to share, and it's been going really well. So anytime someone is like kind of nervous about one of my curves patterns, like, but I've got you. I got your back.
Yes. Well, okay, and you just said something, you could totally coin this phrase. You said, sometimes people have nerves about curves. I'm like, ooh, that's good.
That is good. I like that.
I know. I like you. Yeah, you came up with that. So go with it. I think that's great. And so also in the podcast where we chatted before, you were like, you were hesitant about, how do I say this? You didn't know if the emails were really as powerful as people had said. Have you seen, and you were like, and I don't send out emails consistently. So tell me about your email game. How is it going? And have you seen results from email?
So my email list has really grown. It's gotten actually at like a full list now, which is great. And I've been more consistent with it, sending about two a month. And I have really good open rates, I would say. So usually it's like 65 to 75% open rates. So I'm like, okay, so
Very
people
good.
are reading it.
Yeah, right.
So yes, I think it helps, and I definitely see the sales from that as well.
2 emails a month. Do you struggle with content? What are you putting in your emails? I'm curious, just because other people are always like, what should I put in my emails? So I'd love to hear from you.
It is hard at first. Luckily, I'm pretty regular with coming out with patterns. So that's some filler. And I just did a sew along recently, so that created content. I'm just kind of always looking for ways to create content. Like I guest blogged on your blog, so that was content. And also it was another way for me to create another opt-in. So now I was building up more opt-ins. And sometimes just little things that are related to it. So I shared recently in a newsletter I had fallen in love with this vintage quilt that I had found in a shop, and I shared the story about that quilt and finding it. So I'm just always trying to find things that are related.
I love that. And that's great. Actually, that does make a really good email when people feel like it's a letter to them, not just marketing, but it's like a pen pal and they're hearing from you. I love when people add a personal thing in there about finding a vintage quilt or a recipe or what have you, that they like. Um, so I'm really glad to hear that the email has been working and you're a believer now. You you see the power. Have you noticed a difference between the power of email, like when you post on social media? Because there is a place for social media. I'm not here to say like don't focus on it, because it helps, like it is a thing. But do you notice a difference of which one is more powerful for sales?
I find they bring in different sales. Like they each bring in sales. Every time I go into like a Facebook group and I post about my quilt, I then see the correlations with the people who commented on the picture and then the new sales I got. And then also when I send out my newsletter, um, those people who have been following me for a long time are that is triggering them to come. And I've even like I've run into people and they're like, I went to this retreat recently, and two of the people at the retreat get my newsletter, and they're like, on our way driving up here, we were reading your latest newsletter. We can't
I
wait for the
love it.
release of your next pattern. And I was like, okay. So
You've
it's
made it. You have made it. So one thing to think about, I feel like you're getting to a point where you could think about this and spend money on this and see it being successful. I would think about your free nerves about curves. I just made that a thing, but if you have a free little mini course about that, or your free pattern, how is the free pattern being received? Are people pretty excited about that?
I think so. I had someone actually, I believe they were in Germany, just email me recently asking, they're like, is it okay if
Yeah.
if I turn some of the lemons into blueberries? And then
Oh,
me and
that's cute.
my little quilting bee want to get together and make it, and they're making it for like a charity project or something. I was like, have at it.
Oh,
Tell me
I
all
love
about it when
it.
you're done.
Yeah, send photos.
Yes.
That's
So
great. And I've noticed, like, if there is a photo, so let me look at the hashtag. I want to say it's called, how do you, circuit? How do you spell it? The name of
for
your free
the
quilt?
it's called tossed citrus.
Oh, TOSS and then citrus.
Ed tossed ed
Uh,
citrus.
okay. Tossed citrus quilt. Is that the hashtag for it? Oh,
So I don't know if anyone's even made it yet, but
no, there are
it's
none under the hashtag. So
but
that would be good to add that and get that
yeah, but
going.
over 300 people have downloaded
Okay, so
it.
that actually, this is a very great topic that I'm really glad came up organically. So I have seen that where I will have a pattern release and I'm getting lots of sales, but no one's making or posting it. So if there's something like that where there's 300 people that are interested in this, that is a great time to do like a quilt along, a free, like, here's a prize if you post your, even just a block, just to get people posting and using the hashtag so that when someone like me comes along and looks up that hashtag, I can see, oh, and the point of all of this, where this is all stemming from, if you have a one photo of your free quilt that goes viral, that people love, whenever they see it, they're like, "Ooh, I want to opt in for that." That's when I would say do some Facebook ads. So that's where I'm going with this. Either the free course, nerves. What is it? What did I say? What did you say? People are nervous.
Nerves of
Nerve.
curves.
We'll have to listen back to the recording. But so a free little course or your free pattern. But again, the photos, very crucial, or the reel, the video, whatever it is, that you could pump some money into doing a Facebook or Instagram ad, same difference, and you'll see your email list grow exponentially. And so that is a really powerful thing. But it's nice to get a few things under your belt first, which you've done. You've done that. You're at this point where you could think about doing that now, and your email list will grow and your sales will grow, and it's a beautiful thing. So that's something to think about. So I did also want to touch on, you kind of talked about this before, your main source of revenue was sewing sample quilts for other people because you're very fast. And you mentioned that that's not your main source of revenue now, and it's your patterns. Can you touch on that and share about that?
Yeah, so I am not taking on any sample sewing clients anymore. Um, I have only one person I still work with, and that's a fabric company, and that's been a really great relationship. So I'll still sew for them, but now I'm just putting all my focus in on designing patterns, and uh, and I've also been focusing. So my new is, which I really launched with the Chaos Coordinator quilt I just released, is merging patterns and education. So like with the Chaos Coordinator quilt, it comes with hours of video tutorials. Like I'm holding your hand through the entire process. Again, trying to avoid the fear of curves. And I'm trying to head that way going forward. So you're not just getting a pattern, but you're learning something as well. So that's kind of where I've been going, and it seems to really be resonating with people. So I'm just focusing everything on that. Um, yes, after our call, I remember this line I had said in it, like, I only have 3 patterns. I can't keep sewing my same 3 patterns over and over. And um, it kind of like inspired me after we talked to just start designing. And I've just had an overflow of ideas since then, which has really propelled me forward. I've actually twice since then did double pattern releases, just
Very
because
cool.
like they were written, they were done, I was ready to go. So
Yep.
knock them both out, which I wouldn't have
Which,
been able to do before.
yeah, well, and I love that you have this skill. So many. Okay, you loved teaching. Like you had all of these. That's clearly something that you love. And so to merge this where you want quilt patterns to be your main thing and teaching, that becomes a really unique niche for you. And you can really be known for that with your patterns. And then you also sew really fast. So if you're designing patterns and nothing creates momentum like momentum, or success. Nothing creates success like success. So you have a little bit and you're like, okay, I got this. And have you noticed though, I feel like my journey is like the stock market. It's always an upward projection, but there are some divots, emotionally, financially, success wise of the sale. Have you noticed that as well?
Oh yeah, because like sales, they peak like crazy during release, right? And then those in between, those 2 3 months in between, can be a little dull.
Mm-hmm.
But I found that I've hit this, I call it a milestone, that I'm actually at the point now, and that I'm selling in between releases. People are buying in
Yay.
between releases, and that feels like a huge milestone. Not as much as they do during release,
Right.
but I'm getting consistent weekly sales. So that's exciting. And it's a little bit surprising to me. So I talked about it a moment ago, my Mary and Joy quilt pattern, the Christmas pattern, I almost didn't release it. I was really doubting myself, and like, it's curves, people are not gonna, people have fear about curves, it's Christmas, so it's seasonal. It is May and I'm still selling at least 1 to 3 copies of that pattern a week.
Yeah.
And
I need to
it
make a
blows my
holiday
mind.
quilt, I tell you what.
I don't remember what the original question was, but
But that one is selling well. Right. Yeah, the divots, the like ups and
oh
downs
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
the sales. And emotionally too. I don't Do you experience that where I'll be like, "Man, I'm amazing. Things are going well. This is awesome." And the next day I'm like, "I feel terrible. I am not having success." Like just the ups and downs. You must, right? I feel like that's a human thing.
Absolutely. I had that today.
Oh,
I
really?
was Yes, I did. I was so excited. I had a meeting earlier today with a shop kind of near me, They wanted to talk about some stuff, and I brought some patterns that they had bought. And I knew we were going to get to chat. So, like, last night, I did not sleep well. I was excited for this day, all these exciting business growth things. And I have 2 other things going on, too, that I can't wait to tell you about. But
Okay, now I must know, but I'll wait.
and then the earlier meeting today, it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't what I had hoped to be the outcome. And so I felt a little bummed, and I was like, I need to get over this ick feeling, because I still did awesome. I still sold my patterns. I still built that relationship. I don't know. Yeah. So yes, it's very real.
Yes.
Those feelings.
Well, and then for our listeners who don't know this, we had a podcast recording scheduled earlier today, and I missed that because I was at school with my child for the award ceremony. So that's her second thing today that she's probably like, womp womp. So she was lovely to be flexible as we rescheduled on the spot. So 2 things that you're like so excited and can't sleep about last night, and our emotions go up and down, and
Yes.
Yeah, it gets better. I'm noticing. I think I don't know. A few months ago, I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm not as nervous about will this last? Will it stick? Like what if? It? Yeah, the ups and downs get better, but they're always there. They're always it's part of the fun of it too. I think of like the challenge and the what's the next thing, which I am curious. Well, okay, first of all, what fabric company do you have a relationship with, and how did you get that?
So awesome story. So it's Dandelion Fabric Co. It's a new fabric company. That this is their first year getting into shops. And they actually found me from your podcast.
Oh, no way. How about that?
Yes.
Well, we'll give them a little shout out here. It's Daniel. What did you say, Daniel?
It's Dandelion Fabric Co.
I'll put a link in the show notes, folks, if you want to go take a look.
Yes. So I've been building a great relationship with them and doing some work on the side for them. And I'm really excited for Michelle, who started it. And she actually went through Bonnie Christine's course for the design, and then ended up turning around, and she's like running a whole fabric company now. So
that is so cool. So
really
are
cool.
you like an ambassador? Did they send you fabric or?
So I am their content director. We're working on, I'm creating a lot of educational blogs for once their fabric releases, and working on designing some patterns for them for their shops. And they've sent me their fabric, and they've sewn up some of my patterns and some of not of my patterns that they are using in the promotional materials and stuff. So yeah, it's been a really great relationship.
I am a big fan of collaboration. It just helps. It's a win-win. And then I'll have to reach out and take a look at their company. That's really cool. I love it. I was going to say, how did you find them again? But you just told me on my podcast. Okay. Goodness. So, and then you have, how do we ask and find out information without you divulging? But you have 2 exciting things coming up that you hinted at. When can we find out about them? Let's go with
I'd be happy to tell you about them. So one is really exciting. I just signed a contract to be teaching for a cruise to the Caribbean. So it's a quilting cruise. And
that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I guess it was 7 to 10 days at sea. We're still figuring that out. But yes, early January, or either January or March of 2024. So it is going to be the most epic quilting retreat.
That is so cool. And yay, we get to travel again,
Yes. Oh my God.
What are you teaching, and how did that come about?
So I'm designing a quilt pattern just for this retreat on the ocean.
Yeah. So cool.
So cool. Like the only total side note, but the only other quilter I've ever known do this is Tula Pink. So like in the back of my head, I'm like Tula Pink.
Yes. You are. Own it, man. This is amazing.
So that's really exciting. So yeah, no, a local quilt shop to me has a connection with this cruise quilting company and kind of hooked us up. And so yes, so that's what I'm going to be doing. So also, if
Wow.
you're interested in going to the Caribbean with me in 2024, you should join my newsletter and you can come sail away with me.
Yes. Where does it leave from and which boat is it? Do you know? Is it like Royal Caribbean or?
It's going to be, I don't know which cruise line yet, but it's going to be leaving from Florida.
Okay. Well, that's very exciting. Oh man, we'll have to hear about that. You'll
Yeah.
have to write a blog post and share all the things
Yes.
about that. So the second exciting thing, can you share what that is too?
So the second exciting thing, so the Chaos Coordinator quilt pattern really has felt like the most me pattern I've ever designed. Like I feel like it really was a leaping point for me. And it overflowed into a crazy amount of ideas. And I've compiled a proposal for book companies. So I have designed a whole booklet full of patterns. I have like 14 patterns ready to go. And they're all like on the same theme, kind of like the Chaos Coordinator quilt, really diving into the curves.
I love that.
I'm going to become the curves queen.
Yeah, no more nerves about curves. There it is.
Yes,
There
there it
it
is. And so, yeah, so I'm going to start reaching out to them. And if no one takes me, that's fine. I've gained the confidence from a couple of your podcast episodes you've done that I'll just self-publish. But
Yes, I
I'm
love
feeling
it.
optimistic right now.
Okay, well then, I definitely need to hear what happens with that. Please keep me posted about the book situation. That is very exciting for you. And okay,
Yeah.
I do also want to just point out the fact that is it 10 patterns now that you have? No, you have more than
Yes.
that. 10 that you have
Well,
released?
there's 10 I've released under Love So Modern. And then, oh, actually, this year is going to be a really exciting year. This past year, I've been writing and designing for Quilters World magazine. So, like, almost
Really?
every issue they have coming out this next year, I have patterns in, and they have a couple of books coming out that I have patterns in. So that's
What?
really
Okay, that's a
exciting.
big thing. How was this not on the list of like top
I
things?
I forgot
You have so much
because
going on that
there's
you
so much going on, and they make you do it like so far in advance. Like I
yeah, yeah.
was sewing the Christmas pattern for the Christmas book in January this year.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so I'm very excited about that. And then of course I joined at the end of last year. I joined Modish Quilter magazine.
Yeah.
So I've been.
Okay, I say yeah like that. I didn't know this actually. So
You
tell me
didn't?
more. No. No, I didn't.
Oh,
Did I?
I don't. I just assumed you did because of Kylie.
No, no, tell me more. So what do you do? I'm like, yeah. No, wait, what? Tell me everything.
So that's funny. No, I'm the marketing director for Modish Quilter magazine. So I do like all the blog posts and the newsletters and the Instagram, and I design patterns and write articles for each issue.
Okay, now my mind is jumping to how are you doing all of this? You have kids,
I do. I
young
have two,
kids.
6 and 9.
Tell
Yes.
us more. What are you doing? What are you drinking and eating?
Well, I run on coffee, lots of lattes.
Okay, yes, a lot of caffeine there. Okay.
And also, my youngest started kindergarten this year,
Okay, yeah,
so
that's a thing.
that was like a huge like growth of time availability presented
Yep.
to me. So
I
yeah,
will say too, when my business started, it's when my youngest started kindergarten, and I was like, "Oh, I can see how this works," you know? So, okay, there is
yes,
something to that. There is. Not that it's not possible without, but that is a factor. So, my goodness, I feel like the momentum I'm seeing here, this actually crazy. Like this is I'm very pleased. I did not expect to have this great of a follow-up call. But okay, if you looking back, what have been the biggest game changer? Like, how have you gotten this momentum? What has helped? One that I was going to point out, and sorry, I never finished. You're creating. You did it. You're doing the work. You're sitting down and creating the patterns. And I also want to point out, I remember chatting with you about you've got to stop making other people's things. And you're like, but it grows my audience. I'm like, well, they're not there for you. And you're making your things, and it's worked really well. So those are what I noticed, but I'd love to hear from you. What has really helped you find this kind of success?
So, I mean, that's like you hit the nail on the head. I remember you asked me then, I was like, I sew about 20% my things and 80% other people's things. Well, now I almost never sew anyone else's things. If I'm bored and I want a new pattern, I got to go make it. Um,
Yep.
and once I started doing that, it was so easy to let go of the others. But I had challenged myself. I had said, like, for the next 2 or 3 months, whatever it was at the time, I can only sew my own things. And out of that came my bear crossing pattern, which was a great seller, and my Mary and Joy pattern, which has been like this ongoing great seller. Um, and then once, like you got that good hook, that good bite, I couldn't stop. So
Yep.
that was a huge difference. And also building relationships it just is the biggest, most important thing. I find.
Dabble into that a bit more. Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, so like I built the relationship with the fabric company, Dandelion Fabric Co., and that has resulted into distributors reaching out to me and asking to carry my patterns. Um,
Okay, we didn't discuss that. That's huge.
that
What else is
was
going on here?
yeah. So that was like a huge, exciting thing that recently happened. Right before Circuit and Chaos. I mean, right before Circuit and Maven, there's my last double release that came out. They picked me up. Shank picked me up. So
Mhm.
now my goal is to get into more distributors. That's my
Yes, good.
next big goal for myself. Um, so exciting. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the momentum of creating, doing your own things, I think there is really power in that. It feels very scary and vulnerable, which if you all don't remember, do go back and listen to that other episode where we talked about this last July. But there is something to it to where your mind, once you're in the zone, you start creating. And I love that you said this last pattern, now that you're on whatever number, you feel like you have your look and all of a sudden flow and you're writing a book now. And there's something about just putting in the repetition and the time and the practice and being in that zone where it just awakens the creativity. It's like a muscle that you kind of work, and it gets better.
And also just by letting go of all the other things I was holding on to and trying to keep, it also at the same time I ended up letting go of those fear and the things I was letting keep me back. Like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Doesn't it just doesn't even matter now? Fine, it doesn't work out. Well, we're already working on the next thing.
I want to just put on a plaque what you just said and gift that to everyone. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how hard it is for people to let go. And you said it so perfectly because they're like, well, but I'm going to hold on to this in case this other thing doesn't work out. Like I need to diversify, and be strategic here. You cannot have great success unless you go all in on the one thing and then other opportunities present themselves. It's the reverse. Like they want to start with all the opportunities, but you've got to go in on the one, niche down, get real good at it. It helps you to become better and then you can diversify. So very, very happy to hear you say that and like validate what I preach. This is it, folks. It is real. It works. That you can see it right here. And I'm so pleased. I did not know that this was going to go so well, this conversation. So, yeah, you shared a little bit about what's coming next. Is there anything else on the horizon you want us to watch for?
I'm hoping to see people at QuiltCon next year. I'm going to be with the Modish booth next or in February, so looking forward to that. You can check out more of my patterns in their work. Yeah, just, I don't know, join my newsletter to get the free pattern and to try my mini course. And if you like it, really dive into Curves with Chaos Coordinator and take that free course, which is more than 3 hours of training, so you can't get it wrong.
Look at you. And I do really love your pattern that you just released. Like, it is really cool and really well done. So keep creating because it's beautiful. You're onto
Thank
something
you.
good here. Yeah.
And
And
that really,
congrats. Oh,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
And that really circles back to the letting go of fear, because I wasn't going to release that as a pattern either. It originally started as, maybe you're familiar with the hashtag QuiltCon rejects.
Oh, uh-huh.
I had submitted a whole bunch of quilts for QuiltCon this year, and they were all rejected, which is fine.
Right.
And so I had like this mission. I was like, I'm gonna make a quilt that QuiltCon is going to notice. And I
Love
wrote
it.
it up, and I was like, I loved it, and I shared it. I have a little tester Facebook group, and I was like, is this something people are going to want to make, or is it too scary? Because I'm afraid it's scary. And enough of them are
Mhm.
like, it's amazing. I'm like, okay, fine, let's try it and see what happens. So again, like just like with Mary and Joy, I wasn't going to publish it because I'm like, people are going to be afraid of this. And then with Chaos Coordinator, I wasn't going to publish it. People are going to be afraid of it. And I did it anyways, and they've both been such the biggest successes for me. So
Yeah. Well, are you going to do a quilt along or sew along with your new pattern?
I don't know. I've considered it, but I feel like I already provided so much content with the pattern. I don't know. I'm nervous about what more I could share without just repeating myself.
Well, and I think too, I don't know. The point of doing a quilt along is that motivation for the consumer to make it, to have a deadline to like, okay, I bought this thing, let's actually get it done. And so like because one of my Better Together, I have a whole video
Mm,
tutorial that's hours long and it's half square. It's for a beginner, right? But
yeah.
point is I would just share, here's some fun fabrics. Make sure to go to the video at this minute. This is what we talk about. But it's just that the gifts, that motivation, the hashtag, the camaraderie, that kind of a thing. But if it's doing well and being resonating, I would strike while the iron's hot.
Well, you're like the fifth person today to ask me if I'm doing a quick to lung for it, so maybe I should.
Okay, you need to. Okay, because usually if 2 or 3 people ask, it's going to be good. If 5 people have asked, you've got to do it. So there you go. That's what we're looking for. You're going to be doing a quilt along for this. I'm glad I could tell you what you're going to do next. But really, thank you so much. I had no idea how amazing things are going for you. Way to go. Congratulations. Like
Thank
you
you.
are doing it. You're living the dream and you're a mom with young kids. It's possible. It is possible. So, way to go. And if our listeners want to find you, where can they find you?
So I am on Instagram as Love So Modern, and that's so spelled SEW. And my website is also lovesomodern.com. So those are the places you'll most likely find me.
Perfect. I just thought of how long have you been in this business? For someone who's listening, if they're just starting and they're like, well, forget it, I'm going to throw in the towel. I can never do what Erin's doing. How long have you been doing this?
So I originally started in January of 2020. I quit my job to focus on this. And then the pandemic, of course, happened, and my kids came home from school, and it slowed things down, but it didn't stop me. So I think I released my first pattern, I want to say it was about April of 2020.
Yeah.
And it was a slower roll from there.
Before then, because you clearly had been doing some sewing because you quit your job to do this. So what did it look like before that?
So I have been quilting since my daughter was born. And she's 6 now, so it's been about 6 years
Okay.
that I've been quilting. But I've been garment sewing and other sewing since I was 13 or younger. My grandmother was a seamstress by trade, and she would spend the summers. She lived in Massachusetts and Boston, and we were in Virginia, and she would come and stay with us for like the whole summer, and I would fill a sketchbook full of the wardrobe I dreamed to have, because I thought at the time I wanted to be a fashion designer. And
That is so cool.
she and I would spend the summer making my wardrobe. So I had a custom made wardrobe for many years, which was really cool. So for
Very
a while.
couture. I love it. Yeah. So for that first year of, let's see, early 2020, and then we chatted July of 2021. So, however long that was, you'd been trying. And then it does feel like things got better after chatting. And the thing is, I feel like you studied, and you're doing the things, like you are actually really diving in full 2 feet in, committing, you're doing it. So that's also
Yes.
something to.
I hit this year another personal milestone, I would say. You know how when you go to the doctor's office and they ask you for all your information and they're like, so what do you do for a living? I now say, well, I'm a designer.
Yes.
That's so hard to move to, like, to say that. And I say,
Oh yeah.
well, I'm self-employed, I'm a designer. And they'll say, oh, so part-time. And I just give them a look of like, are you crazy?
Mm-hmm, yeah, right.
And I was like, no, I would call that full-time.
Yep. Good for you. But that is worth celebrating. Like, to own it and to feel confident telling someone that that's what you do, that you have success when you can just confidently say, yeah, that's what I do. And even more so, part-time. No, actually it's full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And
I pull my little business card out of my purse and I say, here you go. And they go, oh.
Yep. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. So fun catching up with you. And I hope to see you in February at QuiltCon?
Yes, I hope so too.
So we'll get to see each other in person. All right. Well, thanks again, Erin. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
Erin, thank you so much for being here on the podcast. It was such a delight to hear from you. I really had no idea all the things that you have up your sleeve. And it was just so fun to hear what's worked for you, what's made a difference. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on your business to be catching all the fun things that you've got coming up. And I, for one, know that cruise sounds amazing. So have so much fun. And I hope you listeners have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next Friday right here on the Craft to Career podcast.